Welcome to another episode of After the Poll. Guys, I'm Mike Spider Slayer, and this is a video series where I share with you my most anticipated comics for the week and see if they live up to the hype. I try to limit the spoilers, and hopefully this list helps you make decisions on what comic books to buy if you haven't went to the shop yet, or if you're going to continue our series. Take my opinions for what they are. Of course, they're just my opinions. And today, guys, we're going to get it started with the books I did not like. And let me tell you, this was a rough comic book week. A lot of the times, the fifth week is tough as you get filled with filler issues, annuals, specials, and there's like a few diamonds in the rough, and this was a rough week. But my least favorite comic of the week winds up going to Lovesick issue 2. This book is actually sick. I could not stand this issue. I liked the first issue, believe it or not. And I was hoping they would try to go into an area with the character that you would explore why she became the way that she is. Instead, it just became more grotesque, more sick, more disturbing, and I can't even show you any artwork because it's just that graphic and that violent, and it's just demoralizing, and I just was completely turned off by this second issue, which means I'm probably going to throw this issue and the other issue in the garbage because I don't even want to sell this to anybody if I was to sell it to somebody. This is just something that's not my taste from the start, and this second issue was just, it's god-awful. I definitely don't recommend this comic book. The next book that I was disappointed in, and I thought this would be much better read than it actually was Planet Hulk Worldbreaker issue 1. This one is written by Greg Pak. I would think that this book was a highly anticipated book for a lot of people that read the first series, and this was just an absolute disappointment as well. This was so boring. When you look at the artwork, you find out that they're on the planet Sakaar, and there's these green little Hulk kids running around. They look like Amadeus Cho's like grandchildren, and they're trying to escape being captured, and it was just a uninteresting story. Once again, it's just a lot of talking heads. Nothing is actually happening. You don't even get to see Hulk until the end of the issue, and you know what, there's really nothing to spoil here because there was just nothing interesting. Again, it's just these guys being hunted. Now, I could be a little bit rough. It's the first issue. They're introducing a story, but when it comes to a book like this, you need a better hook to keep going to read it, right? This was definitely just such a slow story, and it was like, why do I care about these kids? Why do I care about Amadeus Cho, who's 1,000 years old at this point? Like, this takes place in 1,000 years in the future, and I was just like bored to death. Now, it may pick up in later issues, and if you want to stick with it, that's absolutely fine, but I needed a better hook to keep going with this, especially if I'm spending $5 a comic on it. The next book we're going to be talking about is Christopher Cantwell's Briar. This is issue 2. Now, the first issue was actually kind of interesting as you got to see a sleeping beauty not woken up by a Prince Charming. She's just woken up by some, I guess, random person well into the future, and her kingdom is in shambles. And she's left trying to figure out what is happening in the world and where she belongs and whatnot. And in this issue, we basically find herself teaming up with, I don't know, some blue character, right? And she comes across these witches, and they're talking and talking and talking, and there's some like guard that's after them, some, I don't know, some trooper or whatever it is. I'm sorry, guys, but I could be in minority about this one. I like the first issue. The second issue of Briar was just something that was not my thing. Like, I did not enjoy it. It was just a lot of boring talking nonsense that I just did not find interesting. it's tough to sell me on fantasy-like books, and this is a fantasy book that has to do with a character that we know, and there's a twist to it. I love the original concept to it, but the second issue just did not hook me to continue going. So I'll probably wind up dropping Briar going forward. So this was issue 2, written by Christopher Cantwell. I'm sorry, guys, if this so far is very negative after the poll, but I told you, for me this week, there just wasn't many books that captured me. We'll get to those books. I do have a top 5, and they're actually pretty good, but I'm showing you the worst of the worst. All right. The next book we're going to be talking about is Avengers Assemble Alpha. Now, I knew right from the start that Avengers Assemble Alpha was going to be like a crapshoot, right? I was going to roll the dice. Was I going to be able to pick up what was going on after Jason Aaron wrote the Avengers storyline? And everything that I read from Jason Aaron when it comes to the Avengers, I did not like, right? However, when looking through this book, I love the artwork. I thought the artwork was kind of cool. I thought that the battle scenes were really great. There's great 2-page spreads in this book. And if you're looking for action, this book has it. However, if you did not follow Jason Aaron's run, you're going to be lost on who these characters were and where they all come from. And there's a lot of characters on the pages here, which I feel like it's just overdone. The characters consist of the Avengers, they consist of the prehistoric Avengers, they consist of the multiversal Avengers, and the multiversal Masters of Evil. So there's so many characters throughout the pages. Some of them are pretty cool. I mean, you wind up getting Doom Supreme. Like, you kind of can't go wrong with that. I thought he was kind of badass in the book. But the story itself, I just could not follow. Mephisto's in here. Avengers Prime is in here. But there's just a lot of fighting and brawling. And then this tape continues in the pages of Avengers once again. But overall, if you follow it, you might enjoy it because it's ramping up to something nice. Again, Avengers, Dr. Supreme Doom, whatever he is, pretty cool. But, I'm probably not going to read the next Avengers book because, again, I feel lost. So we'll see. All right, let's talk about some books that are a little bit better this week. So the next book, it's not in my top 5 this week because I don't feel like it was as strong as issue 1 and 2. But Born of Blood, issue 3, has definitely been a series that was very underrated in my opinion. And I feel like that a lot of people didn't know about it. And it's better than expected it to be, right? So in this issue, we wind up getting to see the Princess of Sparta team up with King Leonidas. He is now the king. We wind up seeing that the princess's father got killed and, he was handed the throne. And we wind up seeing these two being captured, and they wind up teaming up together to try to escape. Right? And we find out there is a traitor amongst the group in this issue to pit Leonidas and the princess against each other. The artwork is pretty entertaining. This is a very gory book as well, as you get to see a lot of war, a lot of casualties going on. But I like it, man. I dig it. I think this is a very fun series, and I can't wait to see what issue 4 has to offer. I loved issues 1 and 2 much more because I loved seeing the trials that the princess had to go through in order to become the princess that she is today. But now you're getting to see wars, and you're getting to see the ramifications of what happened after her father died. So great story overall. Looking forward to issue 4. All right, next book we're talking about is Strange, issue 8. Overall, this series has been really phenomenal. I've enjoyed Clea as the Sorcerer Supreme. She's trying to resurrect her husband, Doctor Strange, right? In the last issue, this is a spoiler because it's the last issue, we find out that the Sorcerer Supreme, Doctor Strange, is the Harvest Man. He is working for death so he can try to resurrect himself to come back to the world of the living, and Clea found that out. And now they're working together to try to take out this blasphemy gang, and hopefully he can get in the good graces of death and then wind up coming up, and then they're husband and wife again, and they're living together. But until then, they can't touch each other, they can't do anything. And this issue has to take place in the past, and I think it was like 3 years in the past, and we learn about this new character by the name of, her name is what is it, Pandora Peters, and she's the director of WAN. So it's like a supernatural version of like S.H.I.E.L.D., right? And again, this is a story that takes place a long time ago, and the story focuses on Doctor Strange, on this mission that he had to go on to protect this big box and all the prisoners inside, and it was a lot of talking head stuff. It was a very like dense issue, and there was no Clea to be found in this book. And that's when the book suffers, right? Because I feel like what's made this book is Clea, not Doctor Strange. If we wanted to read about Doctor Strange, right, we would read a Doctor Strange book, which was released last week. There wasn't very much action, like I said, in this book, but it does give you the secrets of the Blasphemy Gang on how they were created and who the director or the leader is. And that wasn't until you got to the end of the book. And by the time that happens, you as the reader might be checked out, and you might have put this book down going, man, I'll just wait till the next issue. I read the whole thing all the way through. We find out who that character is and what he's done in order to become the ruler and what he sacrificed. And now in the next issue, you wind up getting to see I guess you're going to see these characters team up and try to take out this gang once and for all. So when you look at it, I feel like this issue was pretty much a filler issue more than anything. Hopefully we see Clea come back and kick some ass in the next issue. Overall though, the series has been really good, and I'm going to continue to read it. Alright, so the next book we're going to be talking about here is Blue Beetle, Graduation Day. You know, I was on the fence about buying this book too at first when I did my top 10 most anticipated. I opened it up, I saw the artwork, I liked what I saw, right? I thought the artwork was great, paneling and layouts are great, the facial expressions are pretty cool, it's a bright, vibrant comic book, and I enjoyed for what it was. I don't know if I actually will be totally invested in buying issue number 2. I'm still going to be on the fence about that because this is a story that we've basically have seen 1,000 times. It's very cliche. You know, we get a high school student, Jaime Reyes, right, who is the Blue Beetle, whose powers are being messed up. There's threatening of an alien invasion, and he's graduating high school. He's got to balance his life, and it's just something that we've just seen a lot of times, right? He gets a visit from Superman. He gives him some advice, which was kind of fun. The one thing that bothers me in comic books, and I don't mean any disrespect for anybody, but when you have 2 or 3 pages in this comic book where there's Spanish dialogue in there and you can't read it, like, why do you have that, right? I mean, I want to read my comic book. If it's in Spanish and I don't speak Spanish, how can I read what's going on? That was my biggest problem with this comic. You know, I get what they're going for, right? But it doesn't work. Like, just translate it into English at least or something, or give me a page where what was said in those pages. So that kind of bugged me about the comic, but you know, it is what it was. It was just nothing great, nothing spectacular, nothing amazing. You know, no pun intended for Amazing Spider-Man. It was just a book where we've seen a high school student just struggling. He doesn't know where he fits in. Does he fit in with the superheroes? You know, he's falling behind. He's falling behind in school where other kids are going to college. He's not. So it's a book where it's like, maybe we'll see where it goes. But again, it was nothing, again, that just sat there and said, wow, this was mind-blowing. I gotta read issue 2. All right. So sorry for all the negativity. I'm just being honest here, but I'm trying to be respectful about it when it comes to the comic books, because there is good in every single comic somewhere, except Lovesick, but it's just not my acquired taste, right? All right. So now let's go to the top 5. And these books are actually good. So number 5 goes to Strange Academy Finals. This is issue 2. Issue wasn't as strong as issue 1. In this book, we don't see anything that has to do with Emily, who you would think is the main character in this series, okay? She's in the dark dimension. She's got people with her. She's slowly starting to turn evil. And then this side of things, we wind up getting to see Zoe, who was Emily's best friend, leave that dimension, come across Doyle, You get to see some really good emotional moments in the comic book, which was nice to see. And that's when this comic really shines, right? And then you get to see all our heroes here kind of team up and look for the character that was suspended or expelled from the academy. And his name is Calvin, that's right. He had the evil sorcerer jacket. So you wind up getting to see them all team up together and try to find him, you know? And there was a lot of bonding moments between the characters. The artwork is always great in this issue. We wind up getting to see the main enemy in this book that kind of had the influence on Calvin. Overall, solid issue, not as strong as issue 1, but I'm sure we will definitely get there. And hopefully Calvin is still alive and well after you get done reading this comic book. You will find out. All right, let's move on to number 4. And number 4 goes to Rogue Sun. This is issue 8. This is coming off the Choose Your Own Adventure story. This is the basically volume 2 or the next story arc in the series, and this was a really good issue as we get to see Dylan, the main character, on also trying to be a hero, okay? But in this series, it's a little darker, it's a little more grittier, you know, instead of being this high school goody-goody, you know, like Jaime, we get to see Dylan, who's kind of like that high school bully, and he thinks that everything is about himself and everything revolves around him. But in this issue, you wind up getting to see his training basically continues. There's people looking after him, trying to make him stronger, trying to make him a better rogue son. We get to see his stepmother come involved, his stepsister come involved in the training as well. He kind of gets a new car, so supervillains don't actually track him down. He can't be so predictable all the time being a superhero. But we see more character development, more of his social life, and then we get to see some more bad guys in this book as well. We get to see this villain by the name of Suave. I think his name is Suave or Suave. He's like a swordsman, right? And he winds up trying to recruit one of his henchmen to assist him in a job. And it kind of goes wrong for the henchman, and it affects the henchman's son. So it's looking like this book is starting to really pick up, and I'm looking forward to this. This was a really good book. I feel like Rogue Sun is a book that's not... I feel like it's not talked about enough, so I want people to be aware of it. And this is written by Ryan Perro, and I think he was the one that did Power Rangers, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, definitely check out Rogue Sun. This is definitely an underrated book, guys. Coming in at number 3 now, we have... This is an interesting one. This is Plush, issue 1. So, let's talk about Plush here. Artwork is pretty cool. I mean, what can you expect? You got people walking around in freaking furry suits, right? They're in this convention / party, and you wind up getting to see this one kid who witnesses some cannibalism going on, where there's this one guy that's like eating another guy, and our main character winds up getting framed for the whole thing, right? And our main character is caught between a crossroads because he doesn't know what to do. Supposedly he got his girlfriend pregnant, and his girlfriend doesn't really like him, but it's not really him that got her pregnant, and there's this whole thing that's involved, this whole twist, and it's just a weird and out there book. But you know what? It worked. I liked it. It was entertaining. It was something different. We'll see where it goes. I like the facial expressions in the whole book too. So if you're looking for something different, this is also from Image Comics, and this is Plush issue 1. All right, so coming in at number 2, this book had me worried at first until it got about halfway through, because in the beginning, this was just a dense talking heads book. Once again, narration done by Helena Wayne. And I guess they were trying to get you caught up on what was happening real quick before the action happened. Let's check out the artwork in this book, though. The artwork is absolutely phenomenal. As you get to see her as the Huntress, we get to see Solomon Grundy in this book as she's kind of like her right-hand man as well. And we get to see the future characters of the JSA. And you get to see them all. By the time, though, you get to the action, you're just like, okay, you're like, who's this guy and who's this guy and who's this guy? And again, it's all the future JSA. So Batman was wound up killed years ago, and Helena is kind of following in his footsteps. And we get to see Selina, having a tough time dealing with her husband's loss as well. So after you've seen all the history and caught up with everything else, that's when shit really hits the fan in this book. And as the reader, you are totally vested by the time you get to the end of it. And we see Helena wind up going on a mission here to try to get the JSA from the past. If you are looking for a new book and you like Jeff Johns, I say pick up Justice Society of America issue 1. You won't be disappointed. Believe me, it's a little slow at first, but you'll like it by the time you get to the end of it. So what was the #1 book of the week in a week filled with mediocre books that just absolutely were craptacular? And this book even wasn't perfect either, because it was also an annual, but the story that it presented was finally a payoff that I've been waiting for since Nightwing 78. This goes to the 2022 Nightwing Annual, as you get to see the story of Heartless in here. And you get to see his origin story. And it flashes back to a story that we did see way back, I think, in Nightwing issue 78, as we learn about this young boy who's like a future serial killer. He likes to kill animals, cats, mice, everything else. And we learn about this butler who was like a con artist. He was posing as a supposed butler to try to get in the good graces of the family, to try to get in their will and testament, right? And at the same time, though, he was raising what is our future Heartless character. And you get to see that origin story from when he was a boy all the way to when he is currently now. And Heartless is definitely a heart-filled character, and Tom Taylor does a wonderful job at getting the reader into this character. I just was just like, wow, the payoff was worth the wait when you read this issue. So good, so well done, and I can't wait to see more of our character now. And yeah, man, this was really good stuff. And I can't believe we were introduced, we saw this character in Nightwing, I think it was issue 78. So great stuff. Guys, if there is an annual that you pick up this week, make sure it's Nightwing, the 2022 annual. You will not be disappointed with this one. So there you guys have it. There is this week's episode After the Poll. Looking forward to hearing what were your favorite books in a very lackluster week. And guys, remember, if you like this video, let's hit the POW button. That's right, guys. New thing that we're doing right now. Hit that POW button. No more smash, no more like. We're going to POW it. So, guys, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully, you enjoyed it. If you love my content, I'll leave you another video right here. This is everything that I picked up for New Comic Book Day. And as always, guys, keep buying, keep collecting, but most importantly, always read your comics. Guys, thank you so much. I'll see you real soon. Bye.